Here are 10 things men should never do with women if they want to build meaningful, fulfilling relationships while staying true to themselves. Many men unknowingly sabotage their relationships by making mistakes that erode trust, respect, and connection. Some of these actions might seem harmless or even helpful at first, but they carry long-term consequences that can be difficult to repair. These missteps don't just affect the relationship, they impact your self-respect, your confidence, and your ability to grow as an individual. What if I told you that avoiding these pitfalls could completely transform your relationships, making them healthier, stronger, and more authentic? It's not about manipulation or tactics. It's about embodying Stoic wisdom and living with purpose, dignity, and integrity. These principles aren't just for relationships, they're a blueprint for a better life. Stick with me, and you'll learn how to avoid these common mistakes while becoming the kind of man who commands respect, inspires trust, and builds deeper, more lasting connections. Whether you're in a relationship, dating, or simply reflecting on your approach to life, these 10 lessons will guide you toward a path of strength and clarity. 1. Never compromise your values for approval. I've seen it time and time again, men contorting themselves into shapes they don't even recognize to win approval. It's tragic, really, because the moment you compromise your values to please someone else, you sacrifice the very thing that makes you dependable, admirable, and, ultimately, worthy of respect. And I've been there. I've done it. I know how it feels. Let me tell you a story. There was a time in my life when I tried to mold myself to fit someone else's expectations. I muted my opinions, ignored my instincts, and told myself I was being understanding. But deep down I knew the truth. I wasn't standing up for what I believed in. And the worst part, I started resenting myself for it. That resentment grows. It poisons your soul bit by bit, because every time you betray your values, you erode the foundation of your character. Marcus Aurelius, a great Stoic thinker, reminds us, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. That means you hold your standards high, not because it's easy or convenient, but because it's the right thing to do. And let's be clear, standing by your values doesn't mean being rigid or unkind. It means having the courage to say, this is who I am, and I will not compromise my principles, no matter the cost. When you live this way, you gain something far more valuable than fleeting approval. You gain self-respect. You become someone who can be relied upon, someone who knows the weight of their word. And here's the thing, when you stand firm, you'll find that the right people gravitate toward you. They'll respect you, not in spite of your values, but because of them. That's how meaningful relationships are built, not on lies, but on truth. 2. Don't base your happiness on her actions. I've learned that when you base your happiness on someone else's actions, you hand over control of your emotional state. It's like tying your self-worth to the rise and fall of the stock market. Unstable, unpredictable, and deeply unwise. There was a time in my life when I waited anxiously for texts, sought constant reassurance, and measured my worth by how someone treated me. It was exhausting, and worse, it left me powerless. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, taught that our happiness depends on our perceptions and choices, not on external circumstances. He said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This is liberating if you let it be. It means that no one, not even someone you love, should dictate your emotional state. You're the one in charge of how you interpret and respond to life. When I finally realized this, everything changed. I started focusing on what I could control: my thoughts, my actions, and my sense of purpose. If she was upset, I didn't let it derail my day. I offered support without absorbing the chaos. If she didn't respond the way I hoped, I reminded myself that my value wasn't diminished by her silence. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care wisely. You stop clinging to the idea that your happiness hinges on anyone else. And here's the paradox. When you no longer rely on someone to make you happy, you become more attractive, more centered, and more capable of giving love freely. Why? Because you're not grasping for it. You've built your foundation on something far sturdier, your own inner stability. 3. Avoid begging for attention or love. There's a quiet desperation in begging for love or attention. I've been there, and it's a humiliating place to be. You tell yourself that if you just try harder, say the right thing, or give more, they'll finally see your worth. But here's the truth. Love that needs to be begged for isn't love at all. It's a transaction, and a one-sided one at that. The Stoics would urge us to approach relationships with dignity and self-respect. Seneca once wrote, "A good character is the only guarantee of everlasting carefree happiness." Begging, on the other hand, is the opposite of good character. It's a sign that you've abandoned your own sense of worth in the hope that someone else will validate you. When I stopped chasing validation, I found something surprising. The people worth having in my life were drawn to me naturally. They didn't need convincing or pleading, and the others? They faded away, leaving room for healthier connections. It was a painful but necessary lesson. Begging devalues you in their eyes and in your own. Love that's given freely without coercion or desperation is the only kind that lasts. By standing firm, you show the world and yourself that you're worthy of respect and that you'll settle for nothing less. 4. Don't lose yourself in the relationship. It's easy to lose yourself in a relationship, especially when love is new and intoxicating. You start neglecting your hobbies, your friends, and even your goals, thinking you're being a good partner. But I've learned that sacrificing too much of yourself doesn't lead to closeness. It leads to resentment, both from you and the other person. A Stoic man knows that self-mastery is essential. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you're constantly focused on someone else's needs at the expense of your own, you lose your sense of individuality and purpose. And without that, what do you truly have to offer? I once put all my energy into making a relationship work, believing that if I just gave enough, everything would be perfect. But in doing so, I stopped pursuing my own interests. Over time, I realized I wasn't just losing myself, I was becoming less attractive to my partner. When I finally started reclaiming my time, passions, and goals, the dynamic shifted. I was no longer dependent on the relationship for my sense of identity, and that made all the difference. The strongest relationships are built on mutual respect and individuality. Keep your foundation intact, or you'll have nothing solid to stand on when the storms come. 5. Avoid overreacting or acting out of jealousy. Jealousy is a powerful emotion, and if left unchecked, it can destroy even the strongest relationships. I've felt its sting, the burning need to control, to know, to question. But here's the thing. Jealousy isn't about the other person. It's about your own insecurity and fear. Epictetus taught, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." What he meant is that you need to accept what you cannot control and focus on mastering your own reactions. Jealousy often arises from imagining scenarios that may not even be real. It's irrational and counterproductive. When I learned to pause and reflect before reacting, everything changed. I started asking myself, what's really driving this feeling? Most of the time, it wasn't the other person. It was my own unresolved fears. By addressing those fears within myself, I became less reactive and more grounded. Jealousy isn't a sign of love, it's a sign of insecurity. A Stoic man works on building his own confidence and self-respect rather than trying to control someone else's behavior. That's where true strength lies. 6. Don't expect her to complete you. I used to believe in the idea of finding my other half. It's a romantic notion, isn't it? The idea that someone out there will fill all the gaps in your life and make you whole. But the truth is, expecting another person to complete you places an unfair burden on them and sets you up for disappointment. I've learned, painfully at times, that completeness isn't something you find in another. It's something you cultivate within yourself. The Stoics teach us to be self-sufficient. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Relying on someone else to complete you is the opposite of freedom. It binds you to their actions, moods, and flaws." I remember being in a relationship where I pinned all my hopes on the other person. When they were happy, I felt great. When they were upset, my world crumbled. I wasn't living my own life. I was living in reaction to theirs. That kind of dependency isn't love. It's a form of self-neglect. Completeness comes from building a life you're proud of, one filled with purpose, growth, and self-respect. When you do that, you enter relationships not as someone seeking to be fixed, but as someone ready to share your strength. And that's the foundation for a partnership that truly thrives. 7. Avoid gossiping or speaking ill of her. There's a destructive power in gossip, and I've seen it firsthand. When you vent about your partner to others, it might feel cathartic in the moment, but it plants seeds of mistrust and resentment, both in you and in the person you're confiding in. Seneca said, "It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence." This wisdom applies doubly in relationships. Speaking ill of someone you care about not only damages their reputation, but also undermines your own integrity. I once confided in a friend about a disagreement with my partner. My words were harsh, exaggerated, and frankly, unfair. It felt good to vent, but later I realized I had tainted my friend's view of her. And for what? A fleeting sense of relief. It wasn't worth it. Since then, I've made a conscious effort to address issues directly with the person involved. It's not always easy, but it's the only way to maintain respect and honesty in a relationship. Gossiping might feel like a release, but it's a trap. The Stoic path is to speak with intention and kindness, or not at all. 8. Don't ignore red flags. I've ignored red flags before, convincing myself that things would get better or that I could fix them. It's a mistake I won't make again. The Stoics teach us to see things as they truly are, not as we wish them to be. Marcus Aurelius advised, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." Ignoring red flags is self-deception. It's choosing comfort over truth. I've stayed in relationships longer than I should have, hoping things would magically improve. But every time, those early warning signs proved to be the cracks that eventually broke the foundation. Now, I pay attention to what my instincts are telling me. If something feels off, I address it directly. Stoic wisdom reminds us that facing uncomfortable truths is far better than living in a comforting lie. A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, honesty, and alignment, not on wishful thinking. 9. Don't try to control her. Control is an illusion. I learned this the hard way. In my younger years, I thought that if I could just manage the details, her choices, her time, her interactions, I could create the perfect relationship. But all I did was create tension and drive a wedge between us. Epictetus reminds us, some things are up to us and some things are not. A person's thoughts, feelings, and actions are theirs alone. Trying to control them is a violation of their autonomy and an act of fear, not love. When I let go of this need for control, I discovered something unexpected: freedom, not just for her, but for me. By focusing on what I could control, my own thoughts and actions, I became a better partner. I wasn't fixated on micromanaging her life. I was building my own. A relationship thrives on trust and mutual respect. Trying to control someone isn't love, it's insecurity in disguise. The Stoic path is to focus on yourself and trust the process. 10. Avoid complaining about your circumstances. I used to complain about everything: how unfair life was, how misunderstood I felt, how difficult relationships could be. But the Stoics have no patience for complaining. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Complaining changes nothing. It only amplifies your frustration and weakens your resolve. I realized that every minute spent complaining was a minute I could have used to take action or change my perspective. When I stopped whining and started reflecting, I found solutions where I once saw only problems. Now, instead of complaining, I ask myself, what can I do about this? If the answer is nothing, I let it go. If the answer is something, I act. This shift has transformed my relationships and my life. Complaining is easy, but growth requires effort. The Stoic way is to channel your energy into what you can change and accept what you cannot. And there you have it. 10 things men should never do with women if they want to build authentic, meaningful relationships while staying true to themselves. Each of these principles, rooted in Stoic wisdom, is not just about improving your relationships, but also about growing into a stronger, more grounded version of yourself. Remember, relationships thrive when built on mutual respect, clear boundaries, and unwavering integrity. By avoiding these common mistakes, you're not only setting a higher standard for yourself, but also for the relationships you choose to nurture. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights like this. Your support helps us reach more people who, just like you, are striving for growth and wisdom in their lives. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What stood out to you the most? Are there any lessons you've learned in your own relationships that you'd like to share? Drop your comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Your takeaways might inspire someone else. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay wise.